Hey students, I'm so glad that you're tuning in for this online lesson tonight. Listen, I know some of you guys are probably at your home groups, others are meeting elsewhere, but I just want you to know, I am so pumped for this year, and I really believe God's going to do some really great things in your life. You know, the new year always starts off, and it's kind of this natural place in life where we just think about what needs to be different about my life as I go through this new year. 2020 has been crazy. I hope 2021 is not nearly as crazy as 2020, but here's the reality. We don't really know what 2021 holds. I like to think about this though. I may not know what 2021 holds, but I know who holds 2021. You see, all things are in God's hands. God is in control. And as we look around and see this world crazy, spiraling out of control, one thing that we can land on is God is in control. So I just want to remind you of that before we even jump into this lesson today. God is in control. He's got this, guys. He's got you. So trust Him, lean into Him, rest in Him, and I promise you, you won't regret that. Also, as a new year kind of approaches, we look at this idea of creating goals. Hey, what are some things that need to change in my life? So some questions that we might ask is like, what are some things I need to start doing? What are some things I need to stop doing? Those are typically questions I ask myself. But I want to challenge you in a little different way. As you're thinking through those goals, or maybe you've already made some goals, I want to challenge you in how you look at those goals. You see, today I want to talk about goals, but I want to talk about something bigger than just losing weight or being better at your particular sport or subject that you're studying in school. I want to challenge you to make God-sized goals for your life. All right, so we're looking at a story today in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was a guy who really had to trust God, and he made some God-sized goals for his life. So in the first chapter of Nehemiah, we're going to see that Nehemiah is basically he has this problem. He's been faced with the reality of the situation. He's been through the Israelites have been through devastation. They had been in captivity, taken in as basically slaves, and now they've essentially are coming back to Jerusalem. But Jerusalem is it's a mess. The city is not what it was. People haven't taken care of it. It's been destroyed. The walls have been broken, tore down. And Nehemiah is crushed. He's just crushed by the devastation. And so we see in this passage that he has a big challenge in front of him. And so what I want you guys to do is I want you to pause this video real quick. And I want you to open up your Bibles and read Nehemiah chapter 1, starting verse 1, and go all the way to chapter 2, verse 6. I know that sounds like a lot, but it's really not. Your home group leaders, they'll help you guys with that. But read it together as a group. Take your time, read it slow, think about what he's saying, and then come back and jump on this video with me again. All right, see you in just a minute. Okay, so since you have taken some time, you've read that chapter, what I want you to do now is I want to kind of go back through that chapter and just point out some things that's happening in Nehemiah's life. See, Nehemiah is faced with a huge problem. Like I mentioned before, the Israelites have been taken captive by the Babylonians, and so they were there for 70 years, and they've rejourneyed, or they're trying to reestablish their life here in Jerusalem, but Jerusalem is a wreck. Nehemiah's heart is broken for his people. His heart's broken that the city of God is laying in ruins. It is vulnerable. And he cries out to God. So the first thing that really helps Nehemiah develop a God-sized goal is he began with difficulty. He faced the difficulty that was around him. I think this is important for us. If you looked at verses 1 through 4, it really points out that Nehemiah's heart is broken. He talks about weeping and not eating and fasting and crying out to God. This guy is heartbroken over what has happened to Jerusalem. And I think I can relate to that. Maybe you can relate to that. Maybe there's some things from this past year that you feel like you lost. Like, man, I've lost some friendships. I've lost connection with my youth group. I've lost connection to my church. I've lost connection with my friends at school. I've lost connection with my teammates or my teachers. I get it. It's been a hard year in that way. But I also want to challenge you to think about, all right, in the midst of that, what are some good things that could come as a result of that? Every problem that we face also gives us an opportunity. Every problem always gives us an opportunity. What's the opportunity that you have in your life? Nehemiah looks at the difficulty of the situation. He looks at the ruins of this city, and he is faced with the reality. What's the opportunity? Now, that's where his God-sized goal begins to be established. But there's another important part to that. Not only does he begin in the difficulty, he begins with prayer. Nehemiah calls out to God in verses 5 through 11. When you read that, that was an actual prayer that Nehemiah prayed to God. He prayed to God. He asked God for help. He asked God for instruction, for wisdom. He asked God for favor. God, help me. And then the third thing, and you read this or caught a glimpse of this in chapter 2, verses 1 through 6, is Nehemiah did not start his plan. He did not start pursuing a rebuilding of this city, which is what he's going to do in the book of Nehemiah, without God's help first. See, a lot of times we will go and we will pursue things and then we'll ask for God's help. Nehemiah stopped in the very beginning and he asked for God's help. So here's some things I want to encourage you. Just like Nehemiah, I want you to think about what are some God-sized goals that you can set for this year. It could be as simple as, hey, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone and share my faith with other friends. And I get it. Maybe you can't see those friends face to face, but maybe you could start that conversation through a text message. Maybe you could start that conversation online. Maybe you could post a video. Maybe you could say, hey, I'm going to post my testimony and share it with my friends and invite them to come know Jesus. But here's the thing, okay? Whatever your God-sized goal may be for this year, make sure, this is really important, guys, make sure you are evaluating what around you is very difficult. What's hard? All right, once you identify some really hard and difficult things in your life, don't try to avoid that. That's a great opportunity for God to show up and do something incredible. You see, the reason it's important to look at our lives and identify what's difficult is because it also identifies where God can be strong and where God can get glory in our life. Many times we try to avoid the hard things or avoid the difficult things. But those are the very things that God has perhaps allowed to be in our life so that His name can be glorified. When you look through the scripture, God doesn't always choose the strong people. He doesn't always choose the people who are got it figured out, who are doing their, like killing it and doing amazing things. He chooses weak, feeble people who are often at the bottom of their family, social circles, people who are broken. And the reason is because He is looking for an opportunity to make His glory known. Look at the problems around you. What's difficult for you? What's difficult in your situation? And invite God into that, okay? That's the second part. Pray about it. Really open yourself up. Acknowledge your inability to accomplish this goal, to move forward, to make some progress in this area in your life without God's help. Listen, I want you to share your faith. I believe with all my heart that God has called every believer to open their mouth to proclaim the gospel. You may not be called to preach. You may not teach a lesson to the youth group or lead a Bible study, but you as a follower of Jesus have been given the task to go into the world and make disciples. You are a part of that equation. And I know that's hard to think about sometimes and picture yourself doing that. But maybe you've only thought about it approaching that or doing that in your own strength, in your own abilities. When I felt called to ministry, like the first excuse that I gave God was, I can't really talk in front of people. I think we all can kind of struggle with that tension. It's not easy to get up in front of people and talk. I get it. So invite God into that. Pray, acknowledge your inabilities, and ask God to help you accomplish your goals. The third thing is don't move forward without God's help. Don't rely on your strength. Don't rely on your quote unquote giftedness. You need God to walk with you step by step. You have to start with His help. And what this means is it's a time and a season when we face God-sized goals, we learn to depend on God. There's been many, many times in my life and in ministry where I've said, God, if you don't show up and you don't do something, I'm going to look like a complete fool. And honestly, those are some of the times that God has showed up and has blown my mind. Totally blown my mind of what He has done and what He has accomplished. Many people ask God for His help later rather than in the beginning. And so I want to reiterate that. Just like Nehemiah illustrated, he prayed and he asked God, I need your help now before I even start this project. Before I even start the rebuilding, I need your favor. I need your help. I need your wisdom. I need your guidance. That's where you need to start. Ask God for whatever you need. If you need confidence, if you need courage, if you need knowledge, if you need wisdom, if you need abilities, if you need resources, listen, this is the place where you have to stop and you say, God, I need you now before I even start. And here's what I believe. I believe God will show up. He will help you accomplish those things, those God-sized goals, because He will get the glory. He will get the glory. And I promise you, your life will be full. You will be a better person because of it. And God will use you to help other people in tremendous ways. And ultimately, and the most amazing part of this is God will use you to bring glory to His name and possibly lead people to Him that will give their life to Him for all of eternity. So as we think about this new year, think about those goals in your life. I'm sure you've set goals like I need to get off my phone and don't be on my phone as much. I need to stop watching binging Netflix or watching Disney Plus. Yeah, I've set some of those goals myself. But I want you to think out of the box. What are some God-sized goals that you need to start, that you could tackle this year in your life? Think about that. Talk about that with your group tonight, and invite God into the midst of that. He can do it. I promise you. Love you guys. Peace.